They still call me the Penguin. Okay, and we have returned after the break. We'll see about that. And our special guest today, Jackie Slater, will be receiving a beautiful fruit gift basket courtesy of our friends at Melissa's Produce. Melissa's is the proud partner of We'll See About That. Please use my VIP code RONSAY when checking out at melissas.com. It is a big pleasure for me to have as a guest today one of the real great Rams in their history. Jackie Slater played 20 years in the NFL. We had a game record of 259 games, most of any offensive lineman in NFL history at the time of retirement. Was a 7-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro a couple of times, and of course played in the Super Bowl with the Rams against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jackie, welcome to the show. Terrific to have you on here. What is going on in your world these days?
Well, first of all, Ron, let me just say that it is an honor to have the opportunity to visit with you. I see your pictures on the wall at the state. When I come in there, and it's just. I remember I never played a down of baseball, but I do remember you when you were playing, and the excellence and the professionalism that you carried yourself. And when I was asked to be a guest on your show, I was just honored. So I want to get that out of the way first. But relative to what's keeping me busy, my friend and old quarterback at the Rams that took us to Super Bowl 14, he and I have been doing a podcast over the last couple of years called On Point Live with Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we're meeting some of your guys, some of your producers up there, and working with those guys, Corey and all of them. They're doing a fantastic job getting our show rolling, and we're just having fun. Kind of retired and enjoy just like everybody else, probably you. And watching baseball, you enjoy that. I enjoy watching football. It's the thing that I've been doing since I was 13 years old.
Well, you've been doing it very well, and you're also a member of the Pro Hall of Fame, and a young kid growing up in Mississippi. Who got you involved with playing Little League football, and eventually you went to Jackson State University, and I believe you played with Walter Payton. Is that not correct?
That is right. I got involved when I was 13 years old. I was 6 feet tall, and I weighed 245 pounds. And,
oh, my God.
And the junior high school coach was trying to get me to come out for football in the 7th grade, but I didn't want any parts of it. And I went another year to the 8th grade, and I'd gotten bigger. And so all of my buddies were saying, "Oh, you're just afraid that those guys are going to whip your head out there." And I was. I didn't want any parts of somebody whipping on my head. But I went out, and I enjoyed it so much. I didn't have a lot of success, but I enjoyed it so much that next thing you know, I rolled into consecutive years playing, and then getting an opportunity to go to college and get my education playing was all exciting. And then, boom, you get drafted by the Rams. It was just a whirlwind of events for a guy that really didn't want to play at first.
Well, looking at your resume, it doesn't say you said you went to Jim Hill High School in Jackson, Mississippi. So were you kind of targeting, college, and did you have any aspect or expectations of going to a different school other than Jackson State University?
Well, it's interesting. I was born and raised right there in the city of Jackson, and I was in the public school system when they forced integration in the state of Mississippi, and I just had such a horrible time that first couple of years. Everybody did, all the students did. It wasn't very harmonious time in our state.
Uh-huh.
And so when I looked at the opportunities to go to college, I was actually only being recruited by the SWAC schools. There was Grambling, Alcorn, Mississippi Valley State, where Jerry Rice went, and, of course, Jackson State, and Texas Southern also. So I visited around those schools, and no one else, Alabama, none of those SEC schools, none of those guys ever even gave me a call. And I just I took advantage of the opportunities that were presented to me. I visited just about all of those schools, and then Jackson State, Walter Payton, and the head coach, Bob Hill, at that time, came over to my home, and they talked to me about, Walter and myself being leaders of the team, and because he was just a year ahead of me. And I was a defensive lineman, so I thought that they were going to have me be on the leader on the defensive side and Walter on the offensive side. And then when I got there, they moved me to the offensive line to block for Walter. I wasn't too pleased with that because I fancied myself a pass rusher and a run stopper, not a blocker. So I thought of leaving, but I ended up staying and working with some really sharp veteran guys that taught me how to take a lot of pride in being an offensive lineman. And then next thing you know, I was blossoming over there at a position that I really didn't care for at first.
Well, I'm sure Walter Payton was very pleased that you decided to make the transition to offense, and you probably led the way down the field for him many times. But the number of schools that you mentioned, they were kind of like small schools back then, but I remember all those schools, very good programs coming out of those schools, very good quality, high quality, that was producing a lot of players.
Yeah, there really were a lot of really good African American athletes that were going to where they had the opportunities to play and to get their education, and it was just what we expected to do, and so had a lot of fun doing that. Did get my degree and graduated from Jackson State in 4 years, and had a wonderful time. Met my wife there, and all, and just coming to the Rams was it was a little bit awkward all over again because I had to get accustomed now to an integrated community with an integrated team. So it was a little bit uncomfortable, but I found that most of the guys on the team at that time, they didn't care about anything but your contribution to them winning a Super Bowl and winning games, and so I ended up fitting in quite well after a time, and then ended up making a lot of good friends that I had all of these years.
Well, going back to what I remember, there was a lot of history and tradition with the Rams on both sides of the football, offensive and defensive line. You had some great players to draw from, probably, I would imagine. Who were some of the guys on the line when you first broke in, and how did that go? How was that process?
Well, it was an interesting process because one of the things that I found out was that no veteran offensive lineman, no veteran in any position actually, is going to be too excited when they go and draft someone that plays
exactly.
that plays their position, because at that point in time, it's like saying, okay, well, maybe you're indispensable here, even though you're a veteran. When I got to the Rams, they had 13-year Pro Bowler Tom Mack. He's in the Hall of Fame now. He was playing left guard for them. The year before I got there, Charlie Cowan, who played 15 years at left tackle for the Rams, and Joe Schiavelli, who was a guard for the Rams for 15 years, both those guys retired, and so the Rams had just drafted the combination of Michael Fanning, the first-round pick. I had 3 picks. Michael Fanning out of Notre Dame, a defensive tackle, who was picked to replace Merlin Olsen, and then Dennis Harrow was picked to replace Joe Schiavelli, and Doug France was picked to replace Charlie Cowan. They were all 3 first-round picks. They had invested heavily in the offensive line, so I was a little nervous about actually making the team because of all that talent there. So I got to play a year with Merlin Olsen. I got to learn a lot about line play from him. I was whipped up in practice almost daily by Fred Dwyer and Jack Youngblood. Fred Dwyer and Jack Youngblood, I couldn't. They were just smart veteran defensive ends, and I just could not. I couldn't get my mind wrapped around what I needed to do to beat those guys. So they schooled me, and I learned in practice with some of the best in the business at that time. some of the tricks of the trade that really made a difference as my career went on.
Yeah, well, I remember all those names, both at the time that you were breaking in and the ones who came in to take those plays. I remember all those names, all really great players. So, hey, we're going to be right back with Jackie Slater right after this message. Names, especially the ones that were there before you got there. Joe Schiavelli, and yeah.
Charlie Cowan.
Yeah. Can't forget him.
Oh man.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of go into the next segment. Kind of, who were the kind of the leaders on that team that you first broke in with, and how did that affect you?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, here goes, gentlemen. Nicely done so far. Here we go. Segment 3. This is going to be 12 minutes. Stand by.
Hello, Ron Save. Okay, we are back with our Hall of Famer Jackie Slater. And Jackie, when you first broke in, who were some of the leaders on that team, and how did that inspire you?
Well, I got to meet Charlie Calvin, and he had already retired, and he was just a gem of a guy, real solid a guy mentally, had real solid thought processes about playing offensive tackle in the National Football League, and he worked for the Rams for a year or two after he retired, and I got to visit with him often, and he shared a lot of his tricks with me, and implementing them was a different story, but he at least shared them with me. Tom Mack was an outstanding leader on our football team at that time, certainly with our offensive line and our offensive team. And then there was Marilyn Olsen. He was like the governor. Actually, he was something else. He took me to the side a couple of times and gave me a couple of pointers here and there that made a world of difference in the way I thought about playing the game and growing as a player. And then there was, as I said, Jack Youngblood was. It seems like he was just always a leader on the team, and just worked hard and made you work hard, made you earn your money every single day, because that's who he was. And Freddie Dreyer, Freddie, I love Freddie. He was always the guy that had plenty of things to say and was always very entertaining. And I just was amazed that he would be living in a Volkswagen van and driving around. It was no big deal. He left work most days with no shirt on and a T-shirt tied around his waist. He was just an unbelievable personality that I got to be around. And Larry Brooks, and there were a few other guys, Lawrence McCutcheon, and then I was learning from James Shack Harris, who was our quarterback at the time, and got exposed to Ron Jaworski. And they were just the Rams were a veteran team when I came in 1976, and there were so many people: Cullen Bryant, Lawrence McCutcheon. There were so many guys, Ron Jesse, that were Bob Klein, guys who were just outstanding. Jim Youngblood. I could go on and on talking about these guys. They were just outstanding leaders, outstanding men, and the type of guys that you would want any young professional football player to be exposed to.
Well, there was a team up in Northern California called the San Francisco 49ers, and they've always been on my radar since a very young kid. They were the closest team to the Seattle-Tacoma area, so I kind of adopted them as my favorite team. But what kind of a rivalry did you have with that franchise?
Well, I hate them with a passion. I can say that. I can say that honestly. And I can remember when a trip to San Francisco for the Rams was to go there and to decide which restaurant we were going to eat at the Wharf. Because we always thumped the 49ers, always. And then a guy named Bill Walsh came.
Yeah.
And brought in a little fullback named Bill Ring. And he had this quarterback named Joe Montana. And all of a sudden, I can remember like it was yesterday, going to San Francisco, and then if we would punt or kick a field goal or score a touchdown, you come out of the game, you sit down, they give you some water, you get your pads straightened up, and then about that time, it was time to go back in because our defense was shutting them down, shutting them out. And then all of a sudden these guys came, and they weren't scoring a lot of points, but they never gave the ball back to us. It seemed like we were sitting forever. They were just kind of like the West Coast offenses are now.
Yep.
They were purists. I mean, they systematically moved the ball down the field at their own pace with their own goals in mind, and that was to convert every how many yards it was. It seemed like if they wanted to get 3 yards on the play, they had the perfect 2 or 3 plays just to get 3 yards. I mean, Bill Walsh was just dynamic that way, and never got to play much offensive football in San Francisco after he came, unfortunately. But they were just the thorn in my flesh and kept me from going to a few other perhaps Super Bowls had they not been in the way.
So what are some of the other? You played the Super Bowl against the Steelers, and give me your feelings about being in that game and playing against the Steelers and some of the players that represented their club.
Wow, I mean, well, for me it was my first year in the starting lineup as a regular starter. I've been put in at right tackle. And I was one of 2 players that played every single snap in every single game that particular year. And so we find ourselves in the playoffs, and Vince Ferragamo got hot. And, I mean, he was threading a needle all over the place in addition to us running the football with Wendell Tyler. But he was threading a needle all over the place. The next thing you know, we're in the Super Bowl. And I got to play against L.C. Greenwood.
Uh-oh.
I'm hoping I don't have to play against Mean Joe Green because 4 years prior to that, I played in the College All-Star game. That was when the defending Super Bowl champions played against the guys that were just drafted to go into the pros. It was called the College All-Star game. It was held in Skokie, Illinois. And I remember, playing against Joe Green in that game. And I remember, I go up and boom, hit him in the knees, go up, boom, hit him in the shins. And he said, hey, man, he said, stay off of my legs. You're on my legs. Get off my legs. And I remember thinking to myself, whenever a defender starts talking to you, that means you got him right where you want him. So a little bit later in the game, I came up high, and he put his hands on my shoulder, and I went, boom. And I could just feel my shoulder pads bouncing off of his shins. And then I felt a tug on my shoulders. And I'm thinking, I really got him now. He's helping me up. So I got to my knees, and then just as I got to my knees, Joe Green held me there, and he kneed me across my chin about 5 times. They had to pull the guy off of me. And I'm thinking this guy could have broken my neck right there in a matter of seconds. And so to this day, when I see Joe Green in Canton at the Hall of Fame and everything, I put both hands together and I bow my head, thanking him. Thanking him for not breaking my neck. But it was an outstanding. They were a veteran team when we played them. They had some guys that were long in the tooth and had been playing together for a long time. But man, they knew how to win. They knew how to turn it up in the big game. And when we would make a big play, if you remember Super Bowl 14, we with 11 minutes to go in that ball game, we had the lead. We had taken the lead and we had momentum, and then all of a sudden things just fell apart. And the things that caused things to fall apart was the play of the veteran ball players, making key plays at just the right time for that team. And I always will remember that it was their experience that beat us in Super Bowl 14.
And that Super Bowl was at the Rose Bowl, right? So that was like a de facto home game for the Rams too?
Yes, it was. We weren't the home team, but there were a lot of blue and gold fans there. You could see it up there, and there was 100,000 people there, I believe it was.
Yeah, what a beautiful sight that must have been, huh?
It was an unbelievable sight, but there were a lot of Steeler fans there as well.
Oh yeah.
When they made plays, I mean, you could hear them. It was the biggest game that I'd ever played in my life, and I didn't play in a bigger game before or after that, but I just remember what a great feeling it was, and I always strived to get myself and my team back to that Super Bowl. Just never Never got back there.
Yeah, I hear you about that. Is that game the game that Lynn Swan made that catch? That
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
It is the
yeah.
game that Lynn Swan made the catch, and it is also the game that Vince Ferragamo threw the interception to Lambert, which prompts several of his teammates to say to him when they see him, instead of "Hi, Vince," they say, "Throw it to Lambert, Vince."
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope.
They
Yeah,
just give him a hard time.
yeah,
We have.
yeah. Now, yeah. I do remember that Super Bowl game. It was a great game, and you guys were in the game and had an opportunity. But yeah, I think anytime that you get to that, that game of games,
It's a big game.
yeah, you got to get there, and obviously you got to win, but you got to get there, and sometimes that experience helps you become, I think, a better player with higher
Yeah.
goals and
Right.
greater expectations. And yeah, you lost, but you know what? I want to go back there and do that again. And
Right.
and I think that is a driving point for a lot of guys that help you with this mentality that you have. What are your expectations? We're going to the Super Bowl. I don't know where you're going, but we're going to the Super Bowl.
Right. You're gonna have that passion. And fortunately for me, it was my first year starting all of the games, all of the regular season games, all of the playoff games, and playing every snap that year. And then to realize that the hard work that I and the other guys that contributed to us getting to the Super Bowl, it was critical work. It was something to be remembered. And so from my fourth year until I retired, that was my motivation. This was where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to get back to. This is what I desired for my teammates. And there was no other goal for me. I practiced that way. I sat in my meetings and I focused that way. Everything was bent in that direction to get that done, and it was simply because the experience, like you said, Ron, the experience of having gone and done that, and just to have seen, how uplifting it was to be there, and how even the wives enjoyed it, and all of that. But it required a lot of hard work, and fortunately, I didn't mind doing the hard work, and I like to think that my effort would have warranted us going back to a couple of those and winning them, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
Well, you certainly did a great job, Jackie, and we're going to talk more about that right after we take a break. We'll see about that. Stay tuned.
All right, fantastic. Sounded great, gentlemen. Sounded great.
Really good, Jackie.
Yeah, it's really.
Good.
That Pittsburgh Steelers O-line has become somewhat notorious over the years. If you recall, they played the year before in Miami, and according to some reputable sources, they were indulging in everything that Miami had to offer in 1979, if you know what I mean.
Are you talking about the defensive line?
Yeah, I'm talking about both the offensive and defensive line.
Oh, okay, because they had Webster, they had Kolb, they had Larry. I can't think of Larry's last name. They had a bunch of guys, man. Their starting right tackle was a guy that they converted from tight end.
Wow.
And the really interesting thing about that, the guy who converted him from a tight end was the guy who came to the Rams my first year as a starter. I don't know if you remember, but Dan Radakovich was the offensive line coach. And Bud Carson was the defensive coordinator, and Lionel Taylor was the wide receivers coach. They all came from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Rams.
Wow.
The same year we went to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
So it was for me that Dan Radakovich, they were going to have me replace Tom Mack at left guard, and he asked me to come to practice, and I practiced one practice at right tackle. And then I got a high ankle sprain, missed 19 days of practice.
Ooh.
And when I started practicing again, I never played another snap at guard. He installed me as a right tackle.
Okay, so save some of that because I want to hear more about all that.
Yeah. All right, so this is going to be segment 4. This is 13 minutes. This is going to be the last one with the great Jackie Slater. We're going to do a quick branded feature at the top, maybe talk a little bit more about Jackie's career, and then maybe get into some of the divisional games.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Rams. Yeah, we'll get into the Ram game.
Okay. All right, here we go. Stand by.
Yeah.
And we are back. We'll see about that with the legend Ron Say. I am Mike Gary, and this week in Dodger history, presented by BFF Financial, 1967, the 12-man Veterans Committee, chaired by former baseball commissioner Ford Frick, announces its selection of the late catcher and baseball executive Branch Rickey, best known for integrating MLB as the Dodgers president and GM in 1947, of course, bringing in the great Jackie Robinson.
Yes, and what a memorable time that was. And, of course, my relationship with that, I know pretty much the history, and Branch Rickey is one of those guys that made it happen. All right, we're back with Jackie Slater, and Jackie, you didn't miss too many snaps in your career, and I kind of curious about how your off-season training was, and I know that you spoke off camera here a little bit about the terrific coaches that you had. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then I want to get to the Ram playoff game after that.
Okay, well, my off seasons were, my first few years in pro football. I had just gotten married, and I had graduated from college, and I had my degree in education. And so we went back to Mississippi those first 3 years when I wasn't playing, and I substitute taught, and I made connections with people in the school system so that I could possibly, get a job. Didn't know how long I was going to play. I'm sitting on the bench for 3 years, and in my fourth year, I started every snap. And as I went back to try to substitute teach and get my feet on the ground there, it dawned on me that my body was beat to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just beat to pieces. And I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm not going to be able to work going to substitute teach and do that. I'm going to have to spend some more time in the weight room and lifting weights and running and staying in shape. And that's exactly what I did because, and even then I'm thinking there's no way that this is going to last long. So I got to keep my connections and my contacts here with the public school system here where I'm hoping to, be a PE teacher and a coach when I get done, because with feeling the way I feel right now, this is not going to, I don't know how much longer this can last. Well, I went and hired people to train me and started lifting the weights and doing the extra running and everything. And then next thing you know, I wasn't getting as beat up during the seasons, and the off seasons, just told me to keep doing what I was doing because I was feeling better and better as the time went along, as I knew more about what I was doing. I wasn't making the same rookie mistakes, and all of a sudden I became a veteran. And Ron, as a veteran, there are certain things that you can do and that you can get away with that some other guys perhaps won't be able to do and get away with, and you still have the kind of success that the coaches want you to have. And so I started operating in that realm. After a couple of years in the starting lineup, and from that point on, the toughest thing for me was making myself go out to practice every day and practice the way I saw Jack Youngblood and Fred Dreyer do it, and Larry Brooks, and which was these guys practice hard.
Yeah.
And that was the challenge. I felt like if I practiced the way that I wanted to play, then I would have an opportunity to be successful, playing the game. And that's exactly what happened. I wasn't always on everybody's best friend list in practice, but I always, they always worked hard, and it was interesting many times that the guys that I practiced in front of were playing their very best football, and it was because we didn't mess around in practice. We got after each other, and it really made a difference for both of us. So that was the thing that I remember. I can't honestly say I learned that from all the veteran ball players, because there were some guys who they would say to you, "Hey, I can only give them 1 day a week." and that's on Sundays. And then they would come out and turn up and play well. Some of them at a Pro Bowl level, just going one day a week. But I just couldn't do it. I had to go walk to the line of scrimmage and look Too Tall Jones in the eye, look Reggie White in the eye, look Mark Gaston in the eye, look Howie Long in the eye, look these men in the eye, and not be intimidated by what they brought to the game with their physicality and their experience and their team and all that. I had to look them in the eye and say to myself, I have put the work in. I know what I need to do to block this guy.
And you guys were, how many days a week, Jackie, back then were you practicing in pads?
Well, that's a great question. When you consider the fact that the NFL today, it has been legislated by the Players Association that once you break training camp in the National Football League, you can only put pads on 10 days for the remainder of the season.
What?
10 days you can put pads on for the remainder of an NFL season after you break training camp.
So this is a current rule?
Yes, that's in place today.
I had no idea.
And when we would break camp, we would have shorts. We would come out on Wednesdays and get after it. On Thursdays, get after it. And on Fridays, we come out and we have shorts and shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Shorts and shoulder pads,
yeah.
not full pads like we did on Wednesday and Thursday. So
wow.
It's totally different. And the other thing, too, is nowadays, most of these coaches, they don't play these guys in the preseason game.
Yes.
The guys that they play in the preseason games are the guys that's going to be on the practice squad during the regular season. Yeah. And why is that? And I can understand it. If you pay a guy $15 million a year to play a certain position for you, and your salary cap says you can only spend up to this much, and he's accounting for the $15 million of that cap, and you're up to the end of that cap. Now, if he gets hurt, you can't go out and buy a comparable talent with comparable experience for $15 million because you don't have it to spend. So now you got to go out and spend $300,000 for some guy that just been hanging on that might not be able to deliver at that same level. So I understand why they do it.
Yeah. But
I don't like it. And personally,
understood.
I don't think I would have been the ball player that I ultimately was if I had limited practices and limited game experiences in the preseason like that.
Yeah, I get all that. The Rams for the past couple of years, have gotten off to slow starts, and they did that same thing this year. I think they started out 1-4 and then finished with a flurry. And they this last game that they just got done playing gave it great effort down to the last play. Almost pulled out a miraculous effort to win this game, but it fell a little bit short. How do you analyze that game that they just played?
Well, I mean, I think you just crystallized everything that you and me and the fans saw. Over the last 2 years, the Rams, you're right, they have. I think they were down 1-4, 1-3 or something like that, and they had to overcome that to get some prominence at the end of the season, certainly this year, to get into the playoffs. But one of the things that you have to remember, and you have to credit the Rams and its leadership for, particularly its coaching staff and Sean McVay, is that this year alone, he had the second youngest team in all of pro football. And last year, many of the guys that were still young this year and making major contributions were rookies last year. So, Jared Verse is up for the, defensive rookie of the year, and so is his teammate, Fish. So it says a lot about growing the young guys. And I can remember back, that first 2 or 3 weeks as a pro, right now it's probably not as physically demanding on the young guys as it was for us, but it's just something about walking into a locker room and there's Aaron Donald sitting over there. And you walk into a locker room and there's Cooper Kupp sitting right over there. And there's Matthew Stafford sitting over there and Rob Havenstein over there. It's just something about walking into a locker room as a rookie and realizing these people are there and they're being paid well. They've been there for years and years. They've played in Super Bowls. There's something about being in that environment that can make a young guy feel like, he maybe doesn't stack up. And he has to figure that out as the year goes along. And then they're looking at the year, as the year goes along, they're looking at that wall, that 10-game wall that they have dealt with for the last 4 years. They've never played beyond 10 games.
Correct.
Now the youngsters are playing in the preseason games, and they got to get through that. And then now the regular season game at 10 games, you're not even finished. So to grow these young guys the way they've been grown over the last 2 years, and to see them get better, and to see the contributions that they made, to me, it was a testament to really good coaching.
All right, gentlemen, we're rounding things out here. Thanks so much to the great Jackie Slater. Let's go through these games this weekend. It's Championship Sunday. We have 2 great games. We have the Commanders, who, Ron, I believe I picked last week.
Yes, you
I
did.
believe I had that.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. They're playing the Eagles. Who do we like? Commanders at Eagles.
Well, to think that Jaden Daniels is a rookie, to be a rookie, and that he is in his first playoff game. I mean, is in a first championship game, that he would melt under the pressure, I think is something that we should really reconsider. Because when I was Jalen's age, I was in my 4th year in the pros. When Vince Ferragamo was Jalen's age, he was in his 3rd year in the pros. Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, is not a rookie. This man has played, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. He probably played 50 games at the college level at 2 or 3 different programs.
Right.
And you don't have that kind of success continually getting better, winning a Heisman last year, unless you know what you're doing. Now, I understand he has one of these different high-tech gadget things that he wears that allows him to see everything like at 1.7 speed faster than what's normal. So he's doing some things to help him process better and all of that. But nonetheless, the guy's not a rookie, and he's playing like a veteran. And remember, he beat Philadelphia early in the season. So I'm going to go with Washington.
All right.
The only thing that makes me a little bit skeptical is that they lost their right guard. Big kid from the University of Texas. He was a tackle. They moved in. His name is Sam Cosmi. Yeah. And that as I find out whether or not he is replaced by proper personnel, because that's a critical position, right guard. Yeah. Then I might change my mind between now and then. I got to look and see. But my initial feelings are that the Washington Commanders are going to be very difficult to beat.
Okay.
Let me just give him my shot on this. I'm going to go the other route. I'm going to go with Philadelphia primarily because I think they have a running game that Washington's not going to be able to stop. They have a 35-65 pass ratio with run. If they control the line of scrimmage and eat the clock and score, I think Philadelphia wins.
Okay, last but not least, we have the game that everybody wants to see. We have the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, versus the Chiefs, and quite possibly versus the NFL officials. Who you guys like?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to pick against Andy Reid and his quarterback. They've just been excellent in everything they've done. And I don't know that there's a team that I have seen since some of the very, very good Bill Belichick coach teams where they handle all the situations that can come up to perfection. They're situational football team that's coached very well in all situations. And there won't be a situation that will occur with Andy Reid's team that they wouldn't have covered and have answers for. So it's because of that I picked Kansas City.
Yeah, well, I can't really argue with anything that you had to say. And, they're the 2-time defending champions. They won 15 games or 14 games during the regular season. They've got Patrick Mahomes. They got this winning attitude. They've got the coach that goes along with it. But for some reason, I just feel like it's Buffalo's turn. They've played close games, and you've got Josh Allen, who had a much better year than Patrick Mahomes did. I think it's their turn, and maybe Jim Kelly would like to be in that situation to win a Super Bowl. But I don't know. Obviously, I think that it's going to be a Kansas City favored game, but I think Buffalo wins this game. That's my shot.
You and I are on the opposite end of the pole right there, and I'm inclined to agree with you about Philadelphia. I just got to find out what they're going to do with their offensive line, because make no mistake about it, I don't think Philadelphia comes close to losing games that they've come close to losing if they consistently give the football off to the big back. I just love the big back. I think that he reminds me of Eric Dickerson probably more than anybody I've ever seen. And if you give him the ball enough, it's going to be hard for people to beat you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, there you have it. Jackie, thanks so much for joining us and your expertise on the up-and-coming games. Good luck to you in the future, and hope to see you at one of those, the Rams facilities, right in my backyard now. So maybe I'll bump into you.
Is?
Oh, yeah, I'm out in Woodland Hills. So, I'm sure that they're going this next year when they get that facility finished up, it's probably going to be a great attraction for the local fans.
Well, I'm sure it will be. Okay,
all right,
guys.
there you have it, Jackie Slater. Thank you so much, Jackie. All right, that's it with Jackie Slater, a Hall of Famer for the day. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back. We'll see about that right after this.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Jackie. We really appreciate it.
Great job, Jackie. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, Ron.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jackie. Hope you get
well.
power back soon. Take care,
You
buddy.
well.
Talk to you soon.